Thank you for joining us on Health Diary. My name is Gladys Gashanja, and today we're coming to you from the Westwood Hotel here in Nairobi. Now, the 2019 population census revealed that there are over 1,500 intersex persons in the country, clearly stating the existence of the third gender. Now, according to the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, it states that that number could be higher than that because many intersex persons shy away due to stigma and discrimination. So on today's episode, we understand the medical explanation of intersex person, and we start off with the fact of the matter. Intersex is a term used when a person is born with a reproductive system or anatomy that doesn't conform to a typically male or female body. Intersex children are born with either two sex organs, male and female, or one visible organ while the other is hidden, malformed, or deformed but present. In some cases, intersex traits are visible at birth, while in others they are not apparent until puberty. Being intersex relates to biological sex characteristics and is distinct from a person's sexual orientation or gender identity. Because their bodies are seen as different, intersex children and adults are often stigmatized and subjected to multiple human rights violations.
I'm Peter Maingi, the father of 3 children. Firstborn is a girl, secondborn is an intersex child, and thirdborn is a boy. I was happy, expecting a boy. The wife asked the lady who was helping. The private parts looks ambiguous, but the information was, it's just a condition we call undecided testicle. It will be okay. One doctor referred us to our national hospital so that they can check well. The result shows our child has undecided testicles on the right hand, and the left side is not identified. Surprisingly, during the surgery, I was later called. I found my wife had collapsed. The most shocking news that I'll never forget, that our child is not even a boy, it's a girl. They said you need to do another test, which is known as karyotype. So we opted for South Africa. They tried to rectify the penoscrotal so that the child, because my child has what we call a prostate, so they thought this would be a boy. So finally they could not manage the condition, and this is now the conclusion that came, that our child is intersex. Our child cannot urinate normally like a boy. So in school they used to bully or even laughing at him. And then the second school that I took my child, surprisingly, my child is extremely very bright. I've spent over 4 million with this child since he was young on the issue of medical, trying all the hospital you think they are the best in this nation. My wife told me there are people suggesting culturally it's a curse, so the best option is just to kill our child and forget about it. I was also told to divorce my wife because this is a curse, maybe that family is cursed, but I said I will never. This is a point where a man, you stand like a man and help your family. Our child now, who is 9 years, though he doesn't want to share it openly, but he knows the intersex. We had thought we'll never have another child because I don't want to undergo this. But the grace of God, God gave us the lastborn, who is a boy. Imagine your child asking you, will I be like this? Will the doctor help me be like this? To be normal like Kiana? And then you can imagine what a pain. Then you tell me, yes. My wife also got a hypertension because of the condition. We are also hoping the Ministry of Education will do something that will help these children and also create awareness so that nobody should ever bully an intersex child.
So the conversation on intersex persons has been top of mind, especially after the 2019 census. And today, let's find out what exactly is intersex persons and especially the medical bit of it. And to help us do that, Ryan Mwiruri, who is an intersex person born and raised as Ruth Mwiruri. Thank you for your time. And of course, we have Dr. Mathura Joshi, who is a pediatric endocrinologist from the MediHealth Group of Hospitals. Thank you for your time. Now, let's start off with the fact that intersex is mostly defined as a condition in which a person is born with a reproductive system or anatomy that doesn't conform to a typically male or female body. What does that mean?
The 2006 guidelines and the subsequent guidelines have proposed a change in nomenclature from intersex to DSD, that is differences of sex development, which is a more medical and a clearer term. Many of the medical practitioners now are using this terminology, but some of them still use the term intersex. So now to understand what different is happening in these individuals, we need to understand what is normal. So during normal development, a human embryo in the first few weeks of life is indistinguishable. So a male and the female embryo is in the initial phases alike. Subsequently, in the next few weeks, what happens is the chromosomal sex and a very complex interplay of genes and their products determines whether this embryo is going to be a male or a female, depending on, and that results in the gonadal development into testes or an ovaries. Once a testes and an ovary is formed, the internal and external genital differentiation occurs as a result of the hormonal products secreted by these gonads. So that is the third stage. Now, if anything is going differently in this normal process, what results is DSD or atypicality in the chromosomal or gonadal or anatomical sex.
Are these intersex traits visible or can they be detected at birth?
Yes, most of the cases of DSD are they present at birth with atypical genitals. Some of them may also in addition have severe hormonal deficiencies and have life-threatening consequences. There are other set of DSDs which may not present at birth with atypicality, such as a subtle atypicality which is noted later on in the childhood. Another presentation is breast development in a male child at the time of puberty. So you see all these presentations are occurring later on, not in the neonatal age group. Then there are other set of very subtle genetic abnormalities which may not be apparent at all, by just clinical examination.
So in your case, looking back, what exactly did your parents notice about you that was different from the other children?
I'm Ryan Muirule and I was brought up as Ruth Wangui. Immediately when I was born, my mom and her midwife was able to tell I was different from other girls. My mom tried to do everything possible, maybe to ensure I get intervention to help to know. But because of the system that we have, it was not accommodating. Like even getting the medical test, like karyotype, is not being done here in the country.
That test would have helped with?
To determine the genetics, if you have XX for female or XY for male. So they suggested if they can even do a surgical process to make me be a girl, physically in terms of genitalia and so. A certain nurse who was a close friend to my mom came to my mom and tell my mom, why are you giving a child as an experimental instrument? And my mom was confused. What do you mean? The 5 doctors that is going to take your child to theater, none of them can tell who the child is. If I were you having this child, I could just let my child grow because there is no any harm to let the child grow, and at a later age, the child or the development will determine itself.
Now, that's how you grew up as Ruth Wangui?
Yes.
How common are intersex persons or intersex births from your experience?
If we talk about DSD, which is a broader term accommodating other presentations than a typical genitalia, then the frequency is more, say 1:1,500 to 1:2,000. These are approximate estimates. We need larger studies and nation as well as international based registries so as to ascertain these numbers and be more sure about these estimates.
Okay, now being intersex relates to, as we said, biological sex characteristics and is distinct from a person's sexual orientation or gender identity? Explain that.
This comprises psychosexual, it's not the biological aspect. So when we say psychosexual development, it basically comprises of gender identity, that is a person's own realization of oneself as a male or a female, gender role, that is a person, it is basically the mannerism or the behavior of the person in the society. For example, toy preferences, like a girl would prefer to play with a Barbie doll. And the third thing is sexual orientation, or the direction of sexual attraction. So all this comprises the psychosexual development, and it is different from DSD.
So for you, Ryan, you've grown up as a Ruth Wangui, and you now definitely have a presentation of both genitalia. How was growing up?
It was very hard. Also growing from a family that does not understand what is it. Also growing from a society that does not understand.
What made you feel not normal?
I'm raised by a single mother, and I'm first of three. So I was brought up in my grandmother's compound where there were too many people, so I could just hear it as a rumors. And I remember one day when we were praying with other children, and they undressed me. That's when I know like I was different in terms of genitalia. Yeah. Because I thought maybe how I was is how all girls look like. But at that point I know I'm different, because they could just say, you know, you look more of a boy, you have this for a boy. So I was asking myself, is it me? Is it me who has a problem? Is it my mom? Is it my grandmother? Or is it these children? So I started questioning myself. At some point whereby I believe like I had a mental problem. And I even started having a suicidal thoughts, which I attempted to commit suicide more than 7 times, and it all times unsuccessful.
What is a hermaphrodite, and what is that? How is it different from an intersex?
The revised nomenclature has now proposed using a terminology as ovotesticular DSD for hermaphrodite. It is more medical and gives a clear idea about the diagnosis. So ovotesticular DSD means ovarian tissue as well as testicular tissue is present in the same individual. And you refer to the term transgender?
Yes, there's also the confusion.
So
all
now
these
that,
the same.
That is the psychosexual aspect.
Okay, so definitely Castor's or Semenya's medical history is not out in public, but there's been a lot of speculation as to what she is. But now what you've given us is actually the medical explanation of each of those terms. Ryan, did you relate with Semenya?
We had an interaction with the people who were very close with her, and the reason why I was much even interested with her. When we talk of we see Semenya, first of all, let us see him as a human.
Okay, now I know we're heading to the stigmatization, which will also bring up your experience growing up as a teen. I'd like to understand, and I think this is something that's come up, is it genetic?
There are certain DSD disorders which have a family history, positive family history. Those are the dominant ones. But majority of the DSD disorders may not be present in the previous generation. So the mutation may either be at that particular time or sporadic, or it may be recessive. So it may skip generations and present itself in another generation.
Okay, now the variations that Dr. is talking about definitely puts all that are living with them at crosshairs with stigma. And earlier you were saying being a child you were already facing it, but it got worse when you hit puberty.
When you reach at that stage is now when the body is shaping itself, and everyone waited for me to be a girl, as how people thought I was, and I was becoming masculine day after the day. Not once, not twice, people succeeded in addressing me to check whether I was a boy or a girl. And as I'm speaking, I'll tell you, in Kenya, over 98% of intersex persons are school dropouts, including myself. Some relate to being a lesbian or being a gay, or maybe other naughtiness. Like I remember when I was young, it became a school affair. When you go to the toilet, they all want to see if you squat or stand. So how many can bear that pressure? I remember it's an incident whereby a very elderly man accused me very badly and telling me I'm the reason why that area was facing a drought at that time, because I'm a bad domain of the area and I deserve to be killed. So the stigma is real. So that's why if you survive not to be killed, you kill yourself.
Okay, now just listening to Ryan, it takes me back to the case with Semenya, the athlete. It was all over the news and everyone was trying to poke holes. Isn't this a form of discrimination in itself, Dr.?
The IAAF has given very, very detailed eligibility criteria for athletes. High testosterone level itself has so many different causes, and DSD being one of them. So detailed clinical evaluation is necessary to reach a diagnosis. It is certainly a debatable topic, and I'm sure the concerned authorities as well will take care of it very well.
Okay, and now intersex persons had a win the other day. They were recognized and enumerated in the last census, but there still are issues. For example, amending the sex markers in your birth certificate or even getting your ID.
Like for example, me, I cannot just do simple things like M-Pesa, because I have ID that recognize me as Ruth and as female. And if you give the ID and they look at you physically, you are two different people. So everyone accuses you for impersonating.
So what would be your ideal when it comes to identification?
Let's start adding a third sex marker from the birth notification.
The choice of doing surgery seems to be top of mind for most parents. But then again, there seems to be such a great downside to that. Which is it?
Doing an early surgery has a certain negative points associated. First is there may be gender dissatisfaction later on if an early surgery is done, in early childhood. Secondly, doing an early surgery does not in any positive way affect the gender identity. So there is no advantage attached to it. And thirdly, doing an early surgery may require treatment, in terms of hormone replacement therapy later on and even continued lifelong. Having said that, I am again stressing upon the point that reaching an accurate diagnosis is important to guide the decision for surgery, because there are certain disorders of sexual differentiation wherein there may be a risk of gonadal malignancy or a urological situation where an early surgery at diagnosis or during childhood is required. Again, this has to be diagnosed medically and along with hormonal tests and imaging. It has to be discussed with the parents and the family along with a clinical psychologist, so that they are able to digest this information and make an informed decision regarding the surgery. Okay,
now Dr. keeps talking about the importance of psychosocial support. Speak on this as a pillar for intersex persons.
Actually, this is the key, that all intersex, not intersex only, even their caregiver or their families. And that's now where we come in. One, what we do is to ensure, like the parent, we talk to the parents. First of all, if maybe it's a newborn baby, first of all to embrace that child. We guide you how to raise the child. Even at some point we go to school and talk to the teacher and tell them, we have this type of a child in the school. It's your responsibility to protect them. Maybe if it's a child who is old enough now, we can talk. We have a side conversation whereby now we talk, we make sure we meet others, we understand what's happening, we encourage you together with the family. Because one thing is to make sure you are very close with the family, because you need the family more than us. Okay. And now from there, if maybe there is any also medical needed, we try to guide.
And when you keep saying us, he is referring to the fact that Ryan is part of the Intersex Person Society of Kenya,
Yes.
where they offer psychosocial support for other intersex persons. And he talks about the astronomical figures that come with the costs. My question is, do we have any provision under NHIF insurance covers that can help in the management of intersex?
Most of the doctors nowadays are following this norm and informing the parents as well as the child about the surgical procedures. Some of them may be covered in the insurance, policies, but when it comes to the cosmetic or the congenital anomalies, they may not be really covered with the insurance companies, major insurance companies.
Okay, and Ryan, you were telling me this is quite a challenge for those that you support also.
We even don't have many doctors, the specialist doctors that you need to see here in the country, and the doctor can tell us there are very few. Even reaching to them is not easy, even starting from the consultation fee. And all the way to do all that is a very, very expensive that an ordinary Kenyan cannot afford.
So for you, Dr. Joshi, what would you say to probably the systems that are to support more of the intersex persons?
The tertiary hospitals and the larger centers which are dealing with the patients with DSD need to recognize the multidisciplinary team approach. And secondly, yes, there are certain difficulties which even I have experienced, like notification of a birth or the cost related to the treatment. Of course, there must be something done in this regard so that these patients can avail the treatment at affordable costs. We held support group meetings for children with DSD where parents could come together, interact with the pediatric endocrinologist, interact with the pediatric urosurgeon, urologist and the psychologist, and then that time they were more open to the psychological issues that they faced. Simple things like, going to the bathroom is a problem with me, So all these things were shared at, during those platforms, and we could understand their problems better, and medically as well we could manage them better because we were understanding them better.
And also to call upon to everyone and tell, like, being ambassador of giving the information, because giving information, having the right information is the key, because if you have the right information, you know the right place to go and the right place to get
the help you need.
Yes.
Okay. Ryan Mwiruri, who is an intersex person but definitely living a full life and preaching the gospel of intersex persons and their existence and the support they need. Thank you for your time. And Dr. Madhura Joshi, who is a pediatric endocrinologist from the Medihealth Group of Hospitals. Thank you for your time. It has been the conversation on intersex persons. Time now for the health tip.
Health tip brought to you by Good Life Pharmacy.
Nowadays, we are exposed to a lot of digital devices, TVs, smartphones, computers. You need to protect yourself from the light that is emitted from that. At the instance that you are already on spectacles, you always go in for a checkup at least every 2 years. The checkup period depends with the age group. For example, the young kids, they have to be examined immediately they are born, and then at least after 6 months they are rechecked again for their vision, as their vision develops rapidly at that stage. At Good Life, we offer quality frames in partnership with Esilo. They supply us with quality lenses and frames, which we also give a 1-year warranty.
Health tip brought to you by Good Life Pharmacy.
We value your interaction with us on our social media handles. Keep them coming through. And of course, for those suggestions of the topics you'd like us to cover on Health Diary. My name is Gladys Gashanja, and today we've been coming to you from the Westwood Hotel here in Nairobi. Until next time, see you. The conversation around intersex persons has been top of mind, especially after the 2019 census. And today, wow, is that our friends, the monkeys? Nilisema jina yangu? Check 1 2 1 2. Am I here?
Fantastic.